Hey, 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 everyone, it's Isaya. Welcome, welcome. This is another episode of Isaya's Inspiring Evenings. And this is actually episode 2 of Exploring Core Truths, with Nicole Brûlé-Walker. So this is a 5-episode series in the podcast where we are discussing Nicole's Core Truth System, a pioneering framework that bridges neuroscience, somatic intelligence, and conscious leadership. Obviously, you've heard me talk about Nicole before, but I'm still going to read her bio anyway. Hi, Nicole. So, Nicole Brûlé-Walker is a health and well-being strategist and the creator of said core truth system. She has been drawing on over 25 years of experience working with elite athletes, entrepreneurs, and impact-driven founders. And she guides individuals and organizations to rewire limiting patterns and unlock sustainable performance from the inside out. Her approach uses intentional neuroplasticity, which translates complex science into deeply human transformation. Through core truths, she helps clients move beyond stress management and mindset work to recalibrate the perceptual architecture that shapes their decisions, relationships, and well being. A strategist, mentor, and speaker, Nicole is known for her clarity, compassion, and ability to reveal the blind spots between body and mind. Her work invites people to move from reaction to conscious creation by restoring coherence, authenticity, and purpose in how they lead and live. And today's episode is episode 3, and the title that we gave it is A Meaning First, Purpose Follows. So, are we going to dive right in? Or are we going for a short recap of at least the names of the first 2 core truths?
Well, I mean, we can dive straight in. I think, there's a really wonderful visual that I always call up for this in that, meaning is the soil and purpose is what grows from it. And we get it wrong so often. And I think it's
Yeah, because
important to sort of make
we're
sure.
being brainwashed to find our purpose. What's your purpose? What's your purpose? It's an intense pressure, isn't it? It seems like when you awaken from just living the life, like so many of us do as young people. And then suddenly we kind of feel that there's more to it. And then immediately we're bombarded with, and what's your purpose? And I'm like, oh. So I'm really interested to see what you mean by meaning first.
Mm, we can't we can't actually come up with the purpose until we have the meaning behind it. And I think there's more of a process than we think. And I think for a lot of us it's the issues that are around that it has become an individual problem. We sort of have to find our own individual purpose, but it really doesn't happen unless we're in connection with others and we create meaning through being in connection with others. So I think that we need to kind of take a lot of steps back and sort of reestablish that so that we can
Mm.
actually, it organically happens. We're not looking for it, it's just there.
So the meaning is something that we have to dig for, and then the purpose will appear, kind of.
Um, yeah, it's more lived. It's almost letting it happen rather than trying to dig for it. Because I think the minute we put effort and drive into it, we sort of lose it because we inevitably end up in comparison and feeling bad about ourselves and feeling like we're behind somehow. And all of those things kind of really lend towards what's happening in the world at the moment. There's so much burnout and there's so much self-doubt. And
Mm.
I think that is in part due to this drive to find our purpose and actually let's just take a step back, let's do it through consciousness, find the
Mm.
awareness of what's important to us and the rest follows.
So it's about investigating what is important for us, thus finding the meaning, um,
Mm.
and purpose appear in due course.
Yeah, I mean, it's all sort of intrinsically intertwined with values. And I think a lot of the time our values, if you look at any sort of values exercise, if I said, name your top 3 values, people would give me 3 words basically. And I think we need to find our own meaning within that. And so
mm,
what I tend to love to do with people is find a descriptor. So, for an example, for me, knowledge is a really important thing for me. But the descriptor I've added is living knowledge. So, the knowledge I want to impart on around me for others to benefit from and for myself is sort of embodied knowledge. So it's coming from different sources. It's diverse and rich, and I'm learning from the people that I work with as much as they're learning from me. And being a student of life and accepting that I don't
mm,
always know everything about everything, and there's so much more to learn, and but trusting what I do know.
mm.
And that
So,
brings meaning to me because I've added value to that original thing. I could have just said,
mhm,
yeah, I value knowledge. But knowledge to me
mhm,
is different to what knowledge to you might mean.
mm. Yeah. So I interrupted previously, which I don't,
Mm,
I usually do, but anyway. So I want you to go back to the soil visual or metaphor, please, because
mm,
I'm kind of getting it more. So pretend I'm a dummy, which I am, and explain again.
okay. So when you think about meaning, we're looking for meaning, and we inevitably sort of push ourselves to look for a purpose without that meaning. And so with meaning, we need the awareness. We need to be aware of what is important to us. We need to find ways to name that, and we do that through our values. Um, but as I say, typical values exercises will ask us to name one
Yeah.
quality,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it'll say knowledge or
Hmm.
love or connection, but it doesn't mean anything until we put some depth to it. And so
Hmm.
it's a little bit like having soil that's in poor quality. And when you actually add nutrients to the soil and you nurture it and you bring it on, that soil has more potential to grow things. What grows from that is in our lives is purpose. We start to find what's important to us because it
Hmm.
aligns with the things that are important to us and it aligns with what's available to create it.
I see. I see. I got that now.
Yeah.
I like the idea that because the values thing has always indeed for me sounded a little shallow. It's like,
Mm,
yeah, I can list a few words, but what does that mean? And do they change tomorrow also? Because
mm,
they're just words, and it's like we're again, and that comes back to core truth number two, which is about the complexity, because
mm,
we very so often, I think, are asked, find a list of three values. Oh, there's your purpose, and I'm like, isn't that a little oversimplified?
mm. Very
Aren't we more
prescriptive.
complex than that?
Mm,
That we know, and I don't know. For me, the values is even the sheer even the three words is complicated
mm,
to decide which are the ones. I know that first of all, I've changed all through my life, and not in a way that I'm perfecting the system. I've radically changed. At some point, I thought that this was important, and actually now I don't. I think it's not. It's not that
mm.
I've refined my values. It's that I've changed my values. I think we're all, if we open up to that, we are okay for change. For a
Yeah.
while, I thought rebellion was a value for me. Not being, not following anything or anyone was a value, and then I changed my mind. Really changed my
Mm,
mind. So I think yeah, we also are more complex than just the three words. And the idea of adding, how do you call that, a descriptor to the said
yeah.
values,
Yeah.
might indeed help us nourish the soil.
And refine what that means to us versus somebody else. And I think this harks back a lot to the filter side of it as well, because if we're filtered through certain lenses and we see the world in a
Mm.
certain way, we're almost pushed in a direction of saying, these are
Yeah.
the values I should have, and this is what I
Hmm.
should say. So we kind of, and I know I've done it in the past where I've sort of listened to what other people said and thought, oh, that's a really good one. I like that one. Maybe I should
Hmm.
say that, and actually, you're jumping on the bandwagon of something that
Hmm.
sounds good, but if there's nothing there of solidness about it in your life,
Yeah.
then how
Hmm.
how does that become useful to you? It doesn't. We need to find the weight of it in our own words and our own phrasing and own meaning.
Yeah, and also I think actually embodying that value before even starting to give it meaning, let alone purpose. Just, actually doing it, not just a word, not even a word with descriptor, but actually a way that I live my life. So if I say for me, one of the big ones is honesty, authenticity, is being just myself. And it's been a freaking journey. So, and I can say that now I think I'm more or less there. I show up as myself. But it's not a, clap your fingers and hop, there we are. So I think, yeah, for me, what you said the previous episode about the complexity has really hit hard on me. So I keep coming back to, to reading social media and finding, oh, come on, you can't be serious about, here's your solution in one step. And I'm like, sorry, what?
Mm,
uh, and for the values, I think it's a little bit the same. Naming something does not mean living by it or embodying it or
mm,
um, and I've had recently I stumbled upon someone on social media who was all about authenticity and her background was fake and
mm,
she had a ton of makeup and basically all her images were AI and I was like authenticity.
mm.
I don't want to be judging here, but we don't agree on that's where maybe I need a descriptor for my authenticity. Um, but also,
Absolutely.
about
Mm,
defining the thing and then living by it.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the thing is that once we add the descriptors, so, for mine, I've got them written down beside me. So I'm just going to glance to the side so I can read them properly. So for me, living knowledge, so that how I described it, that it's more than just a collection of information or courses that I've done. It's
Mm-hmm.
embodied knowledge and it's embodied wisdom within me that I can then share with other people. And I think that's the big thing is actually we need to think about our values as not just being a personal thing and we're the only ones impacted by it. How
Mm,
does it affect everyone around us? Because it's a collective thing. So I put courageous growth, integrated excellence, sovereign peace, and unbound creativity are my five. And funny enough, I mean, I think I did this about 7 months ago, and I still look at them and stand by them. So I think the more you dig deeper, the less you sort of feel inclined to switch to a different
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
value because it actually means something to you. And then if I sort of went through and described all of these in more detail, I'm describing them in a way that actually is not just about me. It's about what does that bring to everybody around me, whether
mm,
that's my clients, my family, my friends. How does that quality then add value to them as well?
mm. Yeah, and that becomes a real meaningful
Mm,
thing. Because, if we're just talking about ourselves in this little tower of individual power and boundary. So the meaning is, I don't want to say useless, but still.
mm. Yeah, and I think there's so much push to do things ourselves for ourselves by ourselves. And in business, I think there's an awful lot of solopreneurs out there who are
Mm,
doing everything for themselves, and that's a really big um, it's a big ask because suddenly you feel like if you're out there asking for help on something you're somehow more vulnerable and maybe you need to be better at these things, and that seems to be the messaging that goes with it. When we're starting to sort of look at purpose and meaning and values, yes, we have to have some connection to it in ourselves. It has to mean something to us, but we never do that by ourselves. It means something to us and
mm,
everyone around us. And that's where we end up in burnout for a lot of people is just having to live up to that constant pressure of having to do
mm,
everything. And it's a really big soapbox moment for me about self-care in that I love self-care, don't get me wrong, but I do sort of think there is a point where you have to say, okay, it's not just about me fixing myself and me using these resources, because then it becomes a very solo thing again. It's about how do we do this maybe in connection with others that gives us greater properties, greater healing, greater ability to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, we seem to have forgotten self in the care thing. For many women, at least, we are oriented into caring for others, so we forgot the self-care. But then when we turn to self-care, sometimes it becomes another type of forgetting,
Mm.
the connecting. And it's really interesting how we maneuver the self and the collective. But I think definitely with you that there is no, you can't choose. It's not an either or situation. It
No.
can't be all collective and it can't be all self.
Mm. Yeah, and I think it's understanding what you need at given times. There are different capabilities, different requirements, different things in life that sort of push you in certain directions. I do think a lot of us, they talk about this growth of loneliness as an epidemic, that
Mm-hmm.
probably post-COVID, it affected a lot of people. Some people I know still very rarely go out of the house unless they absolutely have to. um, and we were always designed to work in conjunction with others, in connection, and somehow we've pushed ourselves so much away from that because we're searching for this purpose that has to be ours. We've forgotten that it impacts on everybody regardless of what we think,
Yeah.
so we need to do that with
And
others.
we want it to impact on everybody
Mm,
ultimately, don't we? I mean, like
mm,
if my purpose or if the values are authenticity and knowledge and creativity and whatever, I want it to impact other people. I want other people to agree with me and to choose the similar values, not the same, but similar values. And then we can have a collective purpose of changing the world into somewhere where knowledge is valued and creativity is valued and authenticity is valued. Because ultimately, if I am perfectly perfect with my little values in my little house, the world still goes to shit.
mm,
Let's put it this way. So I think that to an extent, we do want the collective, that might be the ultimate purpose, right?
mm.
Not to
But I
sound like
think
a hippie here, but changing the world.
all for it. Yeah, all for it. And I think it's interesting that you brought up authenticity, because in itself it means something entirely different to each person. For me to be
Mm,
authentic is different to your version of authenticity. And for somebody to use that as a single word feels like it doesn't hold the same weight, because
yeah.
it doesn't actually describe what authenticity is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that, yeah, ultimately that the idea is for me is where do we go from having found our values, the meaning, and then the purpose if we don't share it, if we don't, yeah, soapbox from, at the top of our lungs on what the aim, the ultimate aim is, then what changes?
Yeah.
Because I can, to an extent, I can get, be locked in my room and or in my house and pretend I'm happy, but it will need, sorry, it will need a lot of me not listening and not watching the news and not looking at the world at all to pretend that everything is fine.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I think the thing with any of the values, for me, it's then digging a little bit deeper. We want to sort of make sure that the soil has a really good, we're not just throwing a load of stuff on top superficially. We want to make sure that there's some real depth and there's some
Mm,
aeration and there's all these wonderful things going on to allow the plants to thrive. We need to dig a bit deeper with those values. And for me, I start to look at with my clients, it's okay to say that, but then let's take it in a direction of how can this spin over to help other people? How
mm,
does this potentially hold you back? We're looking at both ends of the spectrum and trying to find that middle ground where we sort of say, okay, I feel safe enough to express this in a way and
mm,
actually live this instead of just saying it. Because sometimes people feel that it's enough just to verbalize what those values are, and they don't actually carry any of that quality forward, any of that weight. And so
Mm, yeah. Yeah, there is very often, I agree, a discrepancy between what we say and what we do, basically, or who we are, what we say and who we are. Um,
mm,
Yesterday, somebody in a completely different setting reminded me that we are human beings, not human doings, which was, and indeed, what we do ends up defining who we are. But if the words are here and sorry, this is very visual for a podcast. If the words are on the left and the my actions are on the right, there's going to be, and I think that ultimately we feel it inside ourselves that there is a disconnect between what I believe, what is my meaning, what are those values, and what I do on a daily
mm,
basis. And that is also part of the overwhelm, exhaust, and basically low self-esteem because
mm,
we can't trust ourselves. If I say my value is creativity and I never actually take time to create anything, then I can see myself lying to me, basically, right?
mm.
And I become untrustworthy to myself.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that's exhausting.
exactly. I think there's there's too much pressure to sort of find those words, and that's hard enough in itself, and then to try and live them is, as you say, can be an even harder job, and it adds pressure rather than taking it away. um I think the ease that we find in things is actually taking time and actually finding those things that give us the meaning, like what really lit me up, what was it about that moment that really changed things for me, and connecting to those. Because when we feel it in our body and we feel the emotion, the strong emotion that comes with it, it tells us we're on the right track. It
Yeah.
tells us that this is something that actually means something to me. It isn't just, I'm not just saying it on paper because volunteering at a charity once a week or something, a charitable shop once a week is a good thing to do on a CV. It has to mean something. So, for me, it would be then like, if you're going to do that one day a week and you're going to volunteer somewhere, make it about something that means something to you. So for me
Hmm.
personally, dementia is a really important thing because I have a familial connection to it. So for me to do something that directly helps that is going
Mm.
to mean more to me than going to another charity. And I don't want to name any others, but if I could choose any other charity, and yes, it'd
Of
be a
course.
good thing to do, but it means more to me to do it for dementia because, yeah, I have a connection.
Yeah. I hear you. That's, partly why I've got this slight obsession with working with women because I feel this connection at a very womb level, let's call it this way, and then more
Mm.
specifically, obviously. Um, so, what's the point? Sorry, you actually sent me a few questions, so let me be polite and ask those questions. So, why does meaning make all the difference? If we've not covered that all enough, or have we?
I think we kind of have. I mean, because it's such an essential part of it that unless we can connect to it on that emotional, that body level,
Mm,
that with other people, we lose the meaning. It becomes very superficial and sits on the surface, and it doesn't mean it's not a good thing to do or connect to or want to be or have as a value, but it's not as strong as something else, and it's finding those something else.
yeah, and I think it's also very, very the feeling that it's superficial in me is exhausting.
Mm,
I feel like this fraud to myself, and so it's easier not to at all kind of say, okay, no, forget it. Let me dig deeper and find a way that this has a meaning for me emotionally, in the body and with other people, rather than just list words that I'm supposed to live by.
mm.
Now,
And I
uh, sorry, go on.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I was just thinking about it from, like I mentioned earlier, about the filters, in that if we have filters where we say, in work, this is important to me, in life,
Mm,
this is important to me, with my family, this is important. And so we're selecting all these values that actually never sort of cross over with one another. We're just adding to this list of endless
Mm.
things that we have to
Mhm.
compete and keep up with. And so when we isolate down and we go through the layers of all the inherited filters that we've taken on, or the things we've taken on to protect ourselves, and we come down to who we truly are, our truth, then suddenly 3 to 5 things sounds absolutely perfect, and you can take them and adapt them to every part of you. So how you're showing up in one space is how you show up everywhere.
Yeah. I think it's that's one of the things I have uncovered for myself is th this last thing that you said, how you show up in one space is how you show up everywhere. It's such a freaking relief. You know, it's ooh, okay then. I can show up just this way because it's me in any way, you know, whether it's a posh awards dinner or just a family lunch or me in my office, it's such a relief to stop pretending to have to be someone else or to have
Mm.
different values.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is part of it. You know, we're wearing a mask. We're being something that it doesn't feel necessarily true to us, or it's such a small part of who we are. You know, that wearing of that mask becomes very heavy and
Mm,
exhausting.
yeah. And the more masks, the more exhaustion.
Mm,
So if you have those filters that you know, if we have those filters that we have been brainwashed by our family or a lineage to be this way in that kind of circumstance, and then for you we've bought in society's brainwashing of in business, this is how you have to show up. Then you have already two masks, and then add a mother one, add the daughter one. There's so many that we could be wearing, and that is
mm.
definitely very, very tiring.
And adding that, you know, you're adding those values and then tripling them and quadrupling them. And every time you add another mask, you've got another set of a set of values that go with that. And so it just becomes a never-ending task to kind of live up to yourself, let
Yeah.
alone do anything else. And I think social media, you know, really plays a part in that, because we see so much now visually about how somebody should be. And, you know, we look at somebody who's maybe a little further along in their business journey than we are, and we aspire to be that person, and this is how they turn up. Well, yeah, that's how they turn up, but that doesn't mean we have to do it the same way. That doesn't mean our path has to be exactly the same to achieve the same things. And maybe some of the things that are going on behind it in the background that we're not privy to, you know,
Mm.
we'll never know that. And so we're trying to live up to something that's a bit of a facade in itself.
Yeah. So there's two things there, if I hear you. One is indeed social media is not reality. Just check your
Mm,
facts. Before I admire or compete with somebody, I have to make sure that I'm competing with a real person, and with the real results that they show us. You know, let alone the visuals, but even there have been, you know, so many lies.
mm,
And the second thing is whether these things that we try to compete with are true or not. The question is that the competition that I want to be part of?
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's you know, we have to discern for ourselves. And so when we know ourselves really well and we're stopping the comparison and we're not seeing other people and as being something we have to live up to, and seeing just our own way of being and doing it, it just does become so much lighter. I think that we see our own path. We see exactly how we need to do it rather than how follow what somebody else did.
Yeah, sorry, I was having a chat with a friend the other day, and we were discussing purpose. And she was really in a complicated place with that. Um, and I just pointed out at some point that she seemed to be mixing up the idea that her purpose needs to bring her money with choosing a purpose.
Hmm.
I'm like, no, this is society that has brainwashed us that if you find your purpose, then you know you will forcefully become a millionaire by selling those ideas of your amazing purpose. And it doesn't have to be, you know. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's You will work in one direction and get money from one whatever you do, and then the purpose is somewhere completely different.
Mm,
For that idea, I can only think about painters, people who have been painting all their lives, but were in fact not painters, not professional painters, not making any money from their painting. Yet their purpose, their absolute passion is painting and has
mm,
always been painting. But
mm,
they didn't even consider, for some reason, to become professional and to try and sell their art. Still, it doesn't diminish the value of the purpose that it doesn't make you money.
mm.
And
And that
that's, again,
again,
buying into a different set of values. And it is so, I think it's so complicated to, separate
mm.
and
And I
go
think
deep
when we grow
into
up
what
with
I feel.
those,
Yeah.
when we grow up with that, when somebody says, when you're an adult, you get married and you have a house and you have children and you get the job and everything that's you done for life. And it's no surprise that people sort of at midlife, and I hate midlife crisis as a phrase, but it's no surprise that people get there and go, so now what? What
Hmm.
am I meant to do now? What is my
Yeah.
purpose?
Hmm.
Because I've done all those things. Everybody said that would make me successful, happy, da da da. And here I am still wondering when it's all going to come true for me or when it's all going to
Hmm.
happen. And
Hmm.
what do I do next?
Yeah, and I think that for women, because I'm obsessed again, the thing is when children, if you did all the whole children thing, then when they grow up a little bit, they're less of a 24-hour activity for the mother. And then you've got this time, and it's like then I start to think. I remember myself. I started thinking, so what now?
Mm,
What will I do with my days if I'm not creating a huge replica of whatever shitty spaceship in Legos? What is my purpose now? Um, with less laundry, with the whole thing, and I'm like, it's and I feel like I've bought into all the picket fence thingy, although I don't have a picket fence, but I did the children, the husband, and everything. And I did wake up on one morning because there was time enough for me to think, what now?
mm,
And at that moment, I think it's really, it wasn't a crisis. It was a very slow process for me, actually, to understand that this was the moment when I needed to decide for myself instead of through the filters, and it was way more complex than a list of words.
mm. But when you think about it, a lot of people retreat when they're trying to think of what's important to them, and they think I must close myself down in this quiet room and just sit with my journal and figure out what these things are, what's important to me. But we're only doing that on a cognitive level. We're only thinking with our brains and saying,
Mm,
this is what maybe we should be putting down on this bit of paper.
mhm,
We find it in connection. When we
mm,
start to have those big gaps in time that have suddenly occur because your child's gone off to university and they no longer need you as much as they
mm,
did, you have time, and then you start to fill that time with doing things. You might go and take up flower arranging, or you might think, oh, I've always
yeah,
wanted to do this dance class. You're doing that with other people, and then you're enjoying it so much, you kind of find your value in that. And
yeah,
so that's where I'm saying, we can't just rely on ourselves to come up with our values. We have to create them with other people, and
mm,
once we've created them, we find that purpose. Because it might be that going to that flower arranging class, you think, okay, well, I'm going to then volunteer to do these things for people who need them, just maybe making up bouquets just to cheer somebody up, to have that unexpected
hmm,
bit of joy that comes to them through the letterbox one day because you've created something you want to share with other people.
yeah,
And so that gives you real joy, and you think, okay, now I'm going to expand on that. And that might become a business.
hmm, yeah,
So, but it doesn't have to be. And that's the
mm,
point. We have so much that's tied to financial gain that we need to separate that and say, let's put that over there for now and let's find out what really makes us happy.
yeah, I agree. So, as far as the core truth system is concerned, how does this idea of the meaning purpose thing enter? Where, how do you work with it?
Yeah, I mean the core truth system, because they're intertwining, it's basically one thing relies on another. And so I think
Mm,
in this instance, the reason why I start with filters is it's important to kind of remove
mm-hmm,
anything that's standing in your way, that's creating a block in your life, to understand and become aware that that was created by somebody else.
mm-hmm,
You've only adopted it, you've taken it on board, you've taken it on as truth, but there are lots of versions of the truth, and it's about finding which one's yours. The complexity side of things is understanding that, we can't just choose one easy option and everything comes to us. Life just isn't like that. And it's about seeing how we can maybe just leverage the system a little bit more by doing one or two small things that allow us to feel ease. When we've got ease in our lives, we start to sort of see ourselves better, and we start to then be able to create those values, that meaning, and then purpose sort of follows.
mm,
Um, and so then the
yeah,
other core truths are really around change, and, embracing change, because we start to feel like we have to follow what feels natural to us, what feels easy to us, because we're in human nature, we do like habits and patterns, and it feels easy for our brain and our nervous system to stay there. But
mm,
growth doesn't come from that. And so growth comes from embracing change with our nervous system and our body, and being able to do things that are outside what we would have thought as being our remit, and then doing this with other people. So the last
mm,
one is more about relations. So once you've gone through the five core truths, it's really important to sort of start to find your own path from that. And that's what I've found with a lot of my clients, is that the work just carries on, even
yeah.
though they've finished doing the training with me, they've
Yeah, and
continued
it's
to
not a linear
unfold.
thing, you know,
Mm,
because I might be here thinking about the meaning and opening the doors to purpose to come to me, and then suddenly realize that there's still a freaking filter in there that I've
mm,
completely missed, or that I was aiming for an easy, um, simple explanation, and actually, no, it's more complicated than that. So I'm guessing this is a way of life rather than
it is, and that kind of makes it feel like it's heavy and it's going to be hard to do, but it isn't in a way. I think the way that I like to approach it with people is, let's get your nervous system feeling safe, psychologically safe, so that you feel you can take that next step, whatever that looks like for you.
Mm,
Because I'm not there to tell you that's an appropriate or adequate step. It is a step, and that's all it's designed to be. Is
mm,
once you've taken that first step, you feel safe. You think, okay, I feel like I've gained something here. I've done something. Your nervous system relaxes that little bit level further. And then you kind of say, okay, now I feel safe enough to do this.
mm,
Because 3 weeks ago, I would have never said I could do that. But now I feel safe enough to try that. And growth comes from that. We've got to push outside our boundaries of who we think we are. And that's really what the core truths are there for. It's to challenge the
hmm
boundaries we feel we're stuck in, that we
yeah,
we actually, we inherit things that say, you must act like this, you must dress like this, you must do like this, because this is what society expects you to do. But actually, when you sort of step out of that and go into it in a much deeper way, you find out who you are, and then anything's possible.
mm. But I think it's really interesting that um, the way that you present this and work with people is also about, yeah, it's not heavy, but it's not a quick fix
Mm,
situation. And when I said a way of life earlier on, it's really, yeah, I can imagine myself investigating who I am, in refining that for the whole of my life. And that feels like not heavy at all. That feels like fascinating. And
mm,
how can I say that? And allowing me more and more ease in my way of being to the world, with less and less shame, or trying to hide parts of me that I don't agree with, or that I thought I've been told I should not have or be or whatever. And I think that it's the fact that it's not quick fix, um, and then up everything is perfect. For me is rather also part of the relief thing,
mm,
because what if I buy into your system and your system promises me a quick fix and then it doesn't happen? Then I'm even worse out, right?
Mm,
But if the idea is that there's these core truths in my life that I can investigate and journal upon and go and share that with other people and sing with or create bouquets or whatever, then this becomes my life actually,
mm,
becoming more and more of who I am. Does
mm.
that make sense?
Yeah, it's just a reshaping. It's a gentle reshaping of who you are. And, with that comes a lot of clarity, a lot of compassion for yourself. And when you have that, you feel braver about stepping out and maybe doing things you would have never thought of doing and doing things in a different way. I mean, a client that went through the process with me previously, she actually came in because she was at a bit of a crossroads in life in that her children were older and moving away, and she was left with that empty nest syndrome that they like to call.
Mhm.
But at the end of it all, actually, she said the most powerful revelation that came from it for her is it not that she had anything wrong with her relationship with her partner, but it just, she said it just expanded things in such a way that she'd never imagined, because that
Mhm.
wasn't why she was there, but it was a byproduct of that. And that's what I kind of love about the work. And it sounds,
Mhm.
I don't, I think it's exceeded what I expected of it in
Mhm.
creating it, and so I'm so happy with that, because it's that's what life should be, is continually learning new things about yourself
Mhm.
and others, and deepening those connections and those relationships so that everything becomes possible. Because when we're being supported, anything becomes achievable.
Mm. I agree. And when we support others, everything becomes achievable for them as well. So
Mm.
yeah. Oh, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's not such a fight for that purpose anymore, because it doesn't feel like there's, all the things we attach to it, like we've got to have a goal and we've got to work towards that goal, and all the language that we use around it feels so exhausting. And
Yeah.
I think if we can put some ease into it and find a bit of a flow to it that feels natural, feels easy for each person, then just imagine what could be happening in the world right now, if everyone sort of achieved what was in them
Mhm.
and brought it to everyone else.
Yeah, and we're recording this in January, so just because I think that there is a very deep connection into the cycles of the planet. So we're in the northern hemisphere, and January is deep winter. And I would like to use this opportunity to remind everyone that this is the New Year's resolution, the goals, the intentions, the pressure to decide and plan your whole year before January 31st is bullshit. Just breathe, just breathe. Things are going to happen to you, for you, and you can still make whole complete plans, goals, and resolutions in February, in March, in April, and up to December 31st, actually. Because this idea that we need to this pressure again to have a purpose for the year, not even for your life but just for the year, and then if you fail that, which you're going to, because hey, life happens, the weather is
Yeah, I
not as
think about
planned,
80,
and
86% or something, 86% in the first 6 weeks let their resolution fall by the side.
yeah,
So yeah.
and also, if you're not even going for a resolution, but just for a goal or a plan, let's say, I want to walk this path, the Cornwall Salt Path, the thing from the book there.
Mm,
I want to do that. And then you decide that this is going to happen in April, and then the weather is shit. Well, you don't go. And then you feel like a failure because you failed your own plan, which, we set up ourselves for failure when we do that in January in particular. But on the whole, if those plans and goals are rigid, again, and this purpose pressure is rigid, it allows for no ease, no flow, and basically it sets up so much for feeling
mm,
bad about ourselves, which, why are we doing this?
mm. It's just such a funny one. I remember listening to a podcast years and years ago, and it made me smile because it was just such a silly. It felt like such a silly thing, but actually, it's the principle of it is so important. There was a chap who was trying to get himself more physically fit, and he just decided one day, I'm going to put a mat down next to my bed, and I'm going to do one press up. And,
Hmm.
and at its outset, it sounded like a really silly one thing to do, but the reality is once he was in the position on the floor, all ready to go, dressed the way he needed to be dressed, in the mindset of doing, he did more because he was already there. And so I think, fitness is always such a big thing, I think, when it comes to resolutions, and we're kind of getting a bit away from meaning and
Hmm.
purpose. But I think what happened there was important, that he chose such a small goal that he allowed
Hmm.
himself to do it when he was in the position and all of the factors were in place. So this is all your systems, everything was supporting him to be there, because he'd carved out that time and he'd made sure the equipment was there and it was the right time of day and he was in the right frame of
Hmm.
mind. Something bigger happened
Yeah.
because
It
he
was
he'd
easy
allowed
for
himself.
something bigger to happen.
And so I
I
think we
think,
can take that
yeah.
and use it.
Well, the way we, if I hear you correctly, the way we approach purpose is exactly opposite to that. And that's why we fail at it so miserably, is because we go at it from the top. So
Mm,
let me have a huge, big purpose goal thingy, and then let's make it happen. And of course, the pressure is like enormous. So maybe we go at it the other way and we create the fertile soil for the values to grow, and then the purpose will emerge out of the meaning. Am I summing up this correctly?
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, all through the year, anybody who gardens, it doesn't all just happen when everything's in bloom and everything's on show. There's all this preparation that happens behind the scenes to make sure that it happens again the following year. And, really, we need to sort of be embracing what nature's doing and bring it into our own lives more. In how we do that is, you take very small steps to make sure that something grows and is healthy, but like we expect ourselves to just be in full bloom immediately, and it isn't
And
really
all
like
the
that.
freaking time, immediately and forever, which
Mm.
is absolutely impossible and exhausting.
So give yourself, that very small task, that one thing, that little thing that you might go out and do in the garden. Okay, now I'm going to go out and I'm going to deadhead everything because I need to get rid of the old growth so that new growth can come through and the nutrients are there. Give yourself that opportunity. Let's prune away everything in life that's creating too much resistance and conflict and angst at the moment. And let's come back to what actually means something to you. Once you have that meaning, then suddenly your purpose will spring from that. And I promise that, because I think that you take all the weight out of it. It just appears.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The things that when we are less under pressure to prove that we are doing well, we actually remember what we like doing. And that's our
Mm,
purpose, basically, what we love, what we're attracted to. And I think that's so
mm,
important to not be following the anything, basically, to allow for the thing to emerge in ourselves and in relationship to others, but not to be dictated by from the outside in.
mm,
And these very this friend again, I'm sorry, no, it's another friend. She was going on about, am I a healer? Am I supposed to be a healer? And I'm like, who cares? Do you feel like healing other people? Do you feel like, putting yourself out there for that? And she said, no, at the moment I don't. Well, then don't. You know, but what if right now, there's also this thing I think that about time. Um, what you said, we expect immediate blooming and then we expect it to last forever.
mm.
To be uniformly, do you say that? Um, it's like for me, it's very much relates to the cycles of the moon or the earth with the seasons. There is no way that we can live in summer all year.
Mm.
Um, there is no way. It's not
They're there for a
healthy.
reason.
It's not
Yeah.
healthy. We need the ebb, we need the winter, we need that place where we reassess and we rest.
Mm,
And again, we're
absolutely.
recording this in January, so I'm guessing that's why my messages are a lot about that. If we were recording that in August, you would see me completely different message.
And it's absolutely perfect. And I think the biggest message I would like people to take away from this is have that big goal if you want it, but reverse engineer it. Take every step that you might take to get to that, and just concentrate on doing the one thing that you will do that will get you closer to it. And the next step will just naturally come when it's the right time. We can't force. We just do. Do the
Yeah.
things that come naturally and do the things that feel good, and the rest will happen.
Yeah, I think this is a good one to end this this episode. Are you happy with that? Or is there
Yes.
anything that you wanted to add?
No, no, I think it's, just encouraging people maybe to look back at their values and sort of say,
Mm,
okay, how would I expand that? What
mm,
descriptor would I add to that? How
hmm
would I maybe write a little paragraph about it and what it means to me and to other people? And think about how that is individual to you, that would be different if I wrote it or you wrote it, and and
hmm
and that's okay because that
Yeah.
then means something to you.
Mm. Yeah, and that opens the way for the one push-up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want to
Well,
do for that one push up. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you very, very much, Nicole, for another amazing conversation. So, this is episode 3. We have another 2 coming. So, if you've not listened to episode 1 and 2, please go and do that. If you're looking to connect with Nicole, you will find all her links below the audio, video, whatever you want to call it. And please do so. Please connect with Nicole. She's amazing. And her work is life changing in a way that is so, I was going to say gentle, because there's so much pressure around, and I feel that you are taking that away. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
For role modeling that it doesn't have to be push, push, push into until we get to the result or whatever. Which, by the way, and again, my personal obsessions is a very masculine way of dealing with life. And I really think that we need, as women, to reinvent other role models. And I think you are modeling that perfectly. So thank you so much for sharing
Very
that
kind.
with
Thank
me
you.
and with the world. And I'll talk to you soon for episode 4, which we're not going to hint too much because you already did give a few clues. Thank
I
you
did.
very, very much, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you, everyone.